Ford 555B backhoe loader. It's got a, oh shoot, forget the type of transmission they call it. It's got a torque converter with a forward and reverse shifter in front of a 4-speed transmission. And the thing gets hot because the screen down in the bottom of the transmission, oh, somebody's vehicle's farting. Screen down the bottom of the transmission is apparently clogged, and then while it's been here for me to borrow it, somehow, even though it's got a cab on it, the rainwater got up into, or excuse me, down into the transmission. I changed the transmission fluid. Oops, I went too far already. Okay, right about, excuse me, where is it at? Dang it. Yeah, right there in the center of the screen is where the transmission drain plug is. But the drive shaft for the front axle is underneath that, with a guard underneath that to keep it from scraping. So I had to pull all that stuff off, realize how to get the drive shaft out, which turned out to be fairly simple, and then pull the plug out and let it drain. And while it was draining, I tried to straighten this thing that was so beat up, the guard and so forth, and then put it all back together and put fresh fluid back in it. And then, oh no, damn it, another problem. There's the drain pan my boss got for me to use for changing the oil in the Peterbilt. It'll hold the 10 gallons, and then the little pump over there, hand crank it and pump it into jugs or whatever. I put it under here to catch the mess, and to use the end of the hose over the transmission cooler lines to catch whatever I blew out, and very little came out. Last minute, last Sunday evening, because this thing sat for a week waiting on me to work on it some more. This here is a new filter. I put it on in the heat the last of the afternoon. Well, a while ago I tried to take it back off so I could blow out the lines there. And I had even put grease on the O-ring like I'm supposed to. I didn't over tighten it, and the stupid thing will not come loose. I can't do any further than that because it'll bust a hole in it. Local parts stores got one waiting for me that I forgot to pick up. I had given up and bought this one at a different parts store. Little CarQuest filter. So it's got fresh fluid in it too, but the lines and the torque converter that is above this inspection plate with lines going to it, there is a port there you can take the cap off and put a pressure gauge on to check the pressure. Well, I don't have any of that, and I didn't learn that until this morning, reading information out of tractor forums and watching videos that I put into a equipment repair playlist with a gentleman's videos on his 555. But I also had downloaded his entire playlist onto my, saved it onto my channel for everyone that might need it. Okay, I wanted to take the lines loose at the transmission to get it out. Ouch, just knocked myself in the tooth with a flashlight. Let's see if you can see. Okay, with the light shining there is a fitting, swivel type fitting, that's bolted up to the side of the transmission with a sensor on top of it. Maybe we can get you to see it up there. Yeah, there is the sensor and the little wire going back down the side of it, kind of there. I wiped some of it off. That goes on that. Well, the hose that I need to take loose to be able to blow it out right there is right there, that fitting. Well, how are you supposed to get wrenches on that? How are you even supposed to get a wrench on that other thing? Dadgum engineers engineer everything so a mechanic can't do maintenance and repairs, can't replace anything. And look at that old hydraulic line. Well, yeah, it's a hydraulic line for the transmission. The dadgum thing is all the rubber's gone. The last of it fell off a while ago, and thankfully it doesn't leak. Here, this has already been damaged, and somebody brazed it. So what I did is right here, these two lines going through the frame, the front axle mounting part of the frame, go up to the transmission cooler that is in the radiator. So I struggled to get these loose. I took a 1" and a 15/16 wrench and stuck them on there, and I'm too weak to get that crap loose. So I stuck another wrench between the handles and pried it sideways where they were close together to pry them apart, and that popped it loose. And then I pretty much had to do the same with the other one, but it was even harder to do because it just didn't happen to be in a good position. So I took both of those off, did what I could to get them wiggled apart, and this here moved kind of easily. That old messed up rusty thing up there was stiff against the other fitting. I wound up having to take a tip of a pry bar and then take a hammer and tap on the handle and gently tap it apart without damaging, get them loose, and then reach up in there and kind of wiggle around and pull them apart finally. And then where'd the air hose go? I took and stuck that hose of the drain pan on one end that obviously didn't hardly get any oil in it because none drained out on the ground when it fell. And I took this old antique blowgun with a rubber hose over the end of it that disappeared. I think I already wiped it off. And stuck it up against the open end of one of those. And blew it through to let it come out. And then to the other one and back and forth to get a bunch of that old oil out with the darn rainwater in it. Well, it didn't really have all that much come out. And at this moment, and with having to rotate my shoulder across my entire body to get to that underneath this battery box and feel like the joint was trying to dislocate, it feels like it's all a waste of time because the torque converter still has that nasty fluid in it, and I don't have the means to take care of that. I don't have enough fluid to go wasting fresh fluid by blowing it through everything. I don't really want to try to blow diesel or kerosene through there and then have to attempt to somehow get all that out so it doesn't contaminate the oil. Especially since I have fresh oil in this transmission. And it had gotten enough moisture in there that a little bit of moving around and trying to move the last dirt from when I was using the backhoe to finish stacking them stupid tires that have made a nice range for zeroing arms in, but and is not going to make a storm shelter for flip or root cellar or whatever the heck it was ideal. And yes, the shift boot up there has a hole in it. It still shouldn't get any rain to it. The actual shift boot on the transmission itself is in good shape. I looked at it from above by moving that rubber out of the way where it wasn't covering like it's supposed to. But when it got hot and it's, pumping and slinging the fluid, that top gasket had fluid slobber down the side. So I knew I had to change the fluid. And like I said, this was borrowed from family, and I hope they're able to and going to have it fixed. I hope I can get in touch with them before returning it in case they want me to deliver it somewhere, because I can't haul this heavy sucker around a whole lot with my truck and trailer because that trailer itself is too heavy. Old cheap thing I found to buy that's all steel, but doesn't have sufficient enough axles for the size of trailer it is. But you do what you gotta do sometimes. Buy cheap, fix it up, and hope it doesn't bite you in the rear like the tractor I bought for myself, which is another reason I can't afford to fix any of these others. Too much money tied up into an engine overhaul and new drive tires and tubes for the front tires. Thankfully, I got some used ones off somebody else's tractor that's four-wheel drive and mine's not. So it doesn't hurt. They don't have no traction and stuff. Anyway, just a little information that might help somebody, and try to have a good day. I've got to pick stuff up, get cleaned up, do paperwork, run stuff all over the place, and go take care of business.